Good morning.
This is Dan Way with the State Treasurer's Office. This is the June 2021 edition of Ask Me Anything. It's your chance to ask the Treasurer what's on your mind and his opportunity to tell you what's on his. With that, we can go ahead and we'll get started with some opening remarks from the Treasurer.
Thank you, Dan. Thank all of you for making the choice to join us today. We know there's a lot going on after Memorial Day holiday, and I want to distinguish and thank all those who have lost their lives in the line of duty. It's amazing that a lot of people confuse Memorial Day with Veterans Day, and those are two very distinct holidays that are equally individually important. We just can talk about all kinds of subjects. We just got through with our Council of State meeting, which we approved $150 million of bond refunding. This is no different than you refinancing your house, just a little more money involved. And that has a $20 million net present value savings, which in the scheme of our $220 billion that we manage on behalf of those that teach, protect, and otherwise serve and taxpayers like them, doesn't seem that significant, but is $20 million of savings, I think, over the next 11 years of maturity on $150 million. So it is proportionally significant. So with that, it sounds like we have a lot of callers on the line, and we'll, Dan, you'll go ahead and get people started.
Yeah, so our normal routine is we'll just take questions as they come up, no specific order, and we will throw the table open right now. Who wants to ask the first question?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Somebody want to just go ahead and take the initiative?
Okay, I'll go first.
Great.
Hi, it's AP with the North State Journal.
Hey, AP, how you doing?
I'm doing good. So the local government commission has been helping with the financial struggling with the sewer, water, and all that infrastructure. Could you give us a brief update as to where we are, if there are more localities that are going to be considered financially struggling?
Thank you, AP, and thank you for your interest in this. And for 60 seconds of background, the Local Government Commission was formed after the Depression and the bankruptcy of Asheville to become a sort of a regulator on the issuance of debt so that local communities didn't get out over their skis going forward. We were the only state to have one of these for probably a half a century. And there's currently 1,300 entities that report the Local Government Commission, and AP, that's 100 counties, 548 cities, water and sewer districts, universities, hospitals, and airport authorities are the major examples. We have nearly 140 units on the unit assistance list, and the way you get on the list could be issues regarding governance, issues regarding transparency, issues regarding the reconciliation of the books, and whether you can actually account for the money that you're collecting from taxpayers in one form or the other. And then lastly, the issues regarding audits, because you can't audit something you can't count. And so in terms of that, our meeting is today, and unfortunately when we take over one of these communities, it's not something we ever desire to do, but when we take them over, we have to approve budgets. We have to put up Christmas lights. We have to take down Christmas lights, for example. Everything goes into running a city. So we obviously have those that are out there that you've reported on in the past. The thing I reported on to Council of State this morning is Hosky, North Carolina, which has become an Olympian in terms of doing something that's never been tried before and actually landing it. Hosky, I believe, pre-Dale was on the unit assistance list, had budgets were out of control, debt was out of control, and through good management, good leadership, and making some tough choices, Hosky has removed themselves from the list. So we always talk about the ones that are on the list or the ones we're having to take over, but that's an example of one that came off the list, paid off all their debt. So we still have tremendous pressure all across the state. And as I've said to you before, AP, these aren't revolutions. These aren't acts of God or acts of COVID. Typically, they're things that have been evolving for 20 years or so, normally associated with a major event, typically a large employer no longer being in one of these communities. I will tell you that for all those things that are going on, we have different challenges across North Carolina. I was in Ashe County this weekend, and, when you have to pump water and sewer in Ashe County, it's a whole lot different than pumping water and sewer in Elizabeth City. But unfortunately, when you go to work on a sewer line in Elizabeth City, you're about probably 20 inches from the water table, which makes it more expensive to work on something because you got to get the water away from whatever it is you're working on. So we still have tremendous challenges going on there. And on top of that, there's three things that typically drive any entity, and that's the cost of money, the cost of capital, the cost of money, the cost of labor, and the cost of material. The cost of labor and the shortage of labor, the cost of material are just going through the roof. So this is bringing additional financial pressure on some of these entities that are trying to upgrade.
Did you have a follow-up, AP?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to talk about the cost of labor and materials and things like that. I noticed that in the newsletter for this week's call, you were talking about inflation. Greg had told IAC that he thought that inflation was going to get worse. Mm-hmm. How is that going to impact the state pension plan if inflation does continue to accrue, and how will that also impact the townships who are trying to take their way out?
Thank you. Technically speaking, of the $119 billion that currently rests in the pension plan, about $40 billion of that is in what we call fixed income investments, things that earn interest. And anytime that you have inflation, typically you have higher interest rates, and anytime you're trying to earn interest, earning higher interest rates is a blessing. So in the pension plan, we have what we call a short duration, which means that we have really shortened the portfolio in terms of the years and months to maturity when most of that matures. When interest rates were at 10% AP before you were born, when interest rates were at 10%, you would want long duration. You would want to put as much money in at 10% as you possibly could for as long as you could. But obviously, when interest rates are near zero, that's zero. We've tried to shorten the duration. John Gray, we were very pleased. This is the first outside visit he has had in 15 months from Blackstone. And I think Blackstone's the largest owner of real estate in the world currently. And John talked about inflation. We had questions from the IEC, and I'll just say, and I normally don't opine about things specific to the future. When people say, is inflation coming back? Inflation is here. It's not coming back. It's already here. And it goes back to the cost of material and the cost of labor. I've lived through several cycles where you've had a shortage of labor and a high cost of labor, and shortage of material and a high cost of material, but I've never lived through a period where you had both going at the same time. And I think this is a real challenge, and we all have to be mindful of that, and especially as a state government. We can't, this is probably not the appropriate word, and everybody's looking at me as I get ready to say it, but we can't be hoarders. We can't, if there's something anybody doesn't need right now, they probably should not purchase it. If you talk to anybody who's trying to get a certain part for a car, a hot water heater, or an air conditioning unit, rubber tires for my riding lawnmower Saturday, it's difficult. There's the motorcycle place that I worked at for 6 years and volunteer at when I went to Winston-Salem for a couple hours on Saturdays. They just got 50 watercraft trailers and wheels, but no tires on the wheels. So the trailer's worthless, and that's the type of supply chain situations that we have, and that also translates into pump and welding rods and pipe and all kinds of things.
Anything else, AP?
Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Good questions. You have another question out there from someone?
Hey, Treasurer Dan. This is Dave Mildenberg. How are you all?
Hey,
Good.
Dave.
Dale, is the legislature likely to do anything this session related to the rural infrastructure that can benefit these small towns and maybe spur some efficiencies or mergers among the water systems?
We hope so. We're expecting them to do that. But as you know extremely well, Dave, all politics is local. These systems were built, and some of them are in isolation for reasons that none of us can really get to the bottom of anymore. Could have been a land feud, a family feud. Somebody drove a Ford and they were a Chevy person. You never know what was the reason behind this, but I think that one of the additional responsibilities that we have at the local government commission is, if we don't have enough, is to make sure that we're partnering with DEQ, the school of government, League of Municipalities, the County Commissioner Association, and the local delegations to try to figure out what's right, get it right, and keep it right. And I'm normally on top of my game, but I think I got this right. Eureka, for example, has a sewer system, but they don't process the sewer. They send it to another town. And the amount of sewage that Eureka charges for every day, by the time they pay for it to get processed, is doubled. Like, the number of gallons literally doubles. And how could that be? And everybody says, well, there must be a hole. Well, there's not. If there's a hole at the bottom of the pipe, it wouldn't double, it'd be less. And it has to do with rain. And it's holes at the top of the pipe. So when it rains in some of these communities, it literally fills the sewage pipe full of just rainwater. And so here we have a struggling town sending sewage to another struggling town that they're not fully paying for, and then the amount of sewage they're getting processed is twice as much as what they sent. These are some financial opportunities, so to speak, to regionalize these. And I know we talk, billions and millions of dollars all the time, but it really doesn't matter, Dave, if it's the New Hanover Regional Government Center, which we just partnered with them by sharpening our pencil, that's saving $24 million in interest, or the refinancing of some of the state debt this morning at the Council of State, saving $20 million of interest, or figuring out how to regionally put these communities together, because what's happening is the accounts receivable at some of these not yet failing communities are going up because the failing communities cannot pay for the essential services, and then it's a vortex. So regional opportunities are something that's very important to me, and that's why I highlighted Aurora, and we're going to be highlighting some other examples. Bethel, for example, just their utilities were just taken over by Greenville Utilities Commission. So it's done. It's complete. It's connected. The billing is there, and just figuring all that out is very important. But ultimately, what will end up happening is, going back to AP's question, as the cost of these systems continue to go up, and some of these communities are depopulating, especially industrially depopulating, for example, which are heavy users, then the cost of this gets borne by fewer and fewer people, which means the fixed cost per person goes up, and that has a disproportional impact on lower income and fixed income folks.
Yeah. So the progress in this, though, it's being driven by just kind of local decisions, by Greenville taking over a little town nearby rather than some statewide organization that's using a stick.
It's a combination of everything, and that's why I was at the Council of State this morning. I was applauding, Charlie Peruce, the OSBM director, and to talk about, really what was going on by working with the Sharon and our local government commission and all these other entities. And it's really important that, that we work together on these things. And then, as you may have heard this morning, I over a year ago talked about the concern about Terrell County going into default on their bonds, which I think would be the first default on a bond since the Depression in North Carolina. And, what happened in Terrell County was not an act of God or act of COVID. It was an act of the state. So the governor has stepped up again this year to grant some money to Terrell County for the loss of water and sewer revenue because of the prison being, those inmates being sent to Bertie and Pasquotank. When that happens, there's no showers, no toilets, and no food being prepared. Those are all big usage of water and sewer. So the governor stepped up. So we're pleased that they're going to be able to make that debt payment today when the U.S. Department of Agriculture does that sweep into the Terrell County and the City of Columbia's bank account today. There's going to be enough money to pay it.
Yeah. Well, related to that deal, this amount of stimulus money seems to be unprecedented, and obviously they're still arguing about how much is going to be coming in the next few months. But is there, is in your view there's no real excuse for any, the states and counties to be, pleading poverty, given the, incredible amount of money that's flowing down the pipe, even the urban areas?
Obviously, I'm gonna speak from my heart for a moment. We all have seen, and we all have observed what happens when certain people win the lottery and certain other people win the lottery. You hear examples of people win the lottery and they're good stewards of that money. And then as you also hear examples of people who win tens of millions of dollars and 5 years later they don't have anything. And my point of bringing that to your attention is that we've got to make sure that when this money comes in, that we understand that we've won the lottery, in not once, not twice, but maybe 3 times. And it's really important that we start out like we're going to hold out. And it's really important that these communities take this money, and in the words of Hayek and von Mises, the Austrian economist, anytime you reward a certain behavior, you should expect to get more of it. If all we're doing is taking this stimulus money and rewarding the behaviors that may have led to these situations anyway, obviously that is not a good plan. And let me tell you what our involvement is in all this. We get the money. The money gets wired to us, obviously. It's just a mechanical thing, and we put it in interest-bearing accounts. And then we await direction from the General Assembly or OSBM about how to distribute this. But going back to your other point about, Dave, about, these cities and counties, there should be no excuse. That is somewhat accurate, but what you can use this money for is becoming more and more interesting, it seems to me, now that we've gotten 3 rounds of stimulus money. And going back to AP's comment about inflation, if you throw all this work out there at one time to do all these things across the state that has as much border as California does with other states, then you're going to create your own inflation. So that's also a huge deal.
Well, I don't want to hog this, just one more question, I'll get off the line, but, this is just an example to me of, I kind of being interested, you're the state treasurer, and be interested in and this delves into politics, but, and decision making by lawmakers. But I just wonder what your role as state treasurer is when, it was reported by, Governor Cooper has suggested, love Wilkesboro and I love racing, but I mean, you know, that track is long gone, and yet somehow somebody thinks we need to revive that track, right? Because it's, you know, motorsports is so important in our state. But, you know, maybe the lawmakers will agree with that. But, you know, who's raising their hands saying, wait a second, is this the best use of these funds? I mean, and what is your role in that area?
Zero.
Okay.
I mean, I've, you know, the governor's never actually had a conversation with me while he's been the governor and I've been the treasurer about the state of the finances. We've never had one of these conversations, and these are decisions that you know, the governor and his team make when they create a budget, and then that budget is sent to the General Assembly for their consideration. So, as I said, I mean, our number one budgetary challenge right now is to get, and it's stunning that these words are leaving my lips given the tenor of this conversation so far about we're drowning in money, is to get the pension plan fully funded, to get the state health plan fully funded, to get reimbursed. We have not been reimbursed for the actual testing and the treatment and the administering of the COVID vaccine. $170 million have not been reimbursed for the $200 million they took out of their reserves last year to pay to balance the state budget. So our challenge is not to focus on the motorsport industry, but to make sure that we get these plans fully funded, because nothing gets the attention of the rating agencies faster than not properly funding our pension and healthcare plan. But going back to the other point, obviously my door, heart, and mind are always open to the governor or anybody in the General Assembly who wants my opinion about these things. But because of the way this office is constitutionally and statutorily created, as Harlan Bowles talked about on page 143 of his book, Keeper of the Public Purse, there's not, because I'm the treasurer, I want to be clear about this. Doesn't matter who the treasurer in North Carolina is. Nobody gets a look-see into the pulse of North Carolina as widely and deeply as the state treasurer in North Carolina, because of the pension, because of the health care, because of the local government commission, because of the debt affordability commission, because of the OPEB committee, because of the housing finance agency, because of the state board of education, the community college board, chair of the state banking commission. Those are just 7 of the 21 responsibilities. Global transport. Nobody gets a look-see into the pulse as much as the state treasurer of North Carolina does, no matter who that happens to be.
What is does the budget that is being debated include a refund of those money? That money you're talking about, the $200 million, or where does that sit?
We have not. I do not have a high degree of confidence that I don't know where it is. Is the bottom line. But I can tell you that the debate about whether it needs to be paid back or not there shouldn't even be a debate associated with that. The conversation about whether it's above the line or below the line after you determine what your spending cap is, that shouldn't even be a question. I mean, all we do at the treasurer's office is we make money and save money. When we make money, it keeps these plans more solvent for this and the next generation of public service worker. And when we save money, we put it into reserves to pay for the unfunded health care and pension liabilities of those that teach, protect, and serve. That's all we do. We make money and we save money to preserve and strengthen these plans. And no one's asked me this question, but I'm sure some of you saw either Jane Pauley's show yesterday morning or 60 Minutes last night. It was said by one of the leading scientists in the United States that half of the children born today are going to live to be over 100 years of age. And over half. And that's a blessing, obviously. But, for example, this pension plan was never designed for that. It was never designed to have the the minimum retirement age eliminated. It was never designed for people born today to be living, half of them living over 100. It was never designed basically for this simple concept that we're in a situation, especially with the life expectancy of females right now, which is a blessing, that they're going to be receiving more retirement checks in their life than they did paychecks working for the state. When you combine that with zero interest rates, that's why fully funding this pension plan is so important to me. Because when you get behind, there's a little technical thing here. I hope you're still with me. I don't know if it's exactly 200 basis points or 2%, but somebody, I'm sure, has thought when they look at the Elders pension plan, which we manage, and the state pension plan, which we manage, called Elders and Teasers, there's about a 2% difference in the fundedness of those plans. And people say, well, how in the hell could that happen when they're both managed by the same people? And the answer is mathematics. After 9/11, during the recession, the stock market was closed, the value of stocks went down. The General Assembly did not fund the pension plan that year. The elders, the local governments, decided to keep their foot on the gas. That one funding decision in 1 year, 20 years ago, is the reason that one of those plans is better funded than the other one today. That one decision. So my point of saying that, Dave, that is a mathematical, historical, certified example of what can happen when and how this will get on top of us if we don't fully fund the pension plan.
That's really interesting. Thanks for sharing that information, Dale. Thank you.
It's always more than you want to know, I'm sure.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate the questions. Someone else have a question out there?
Dan, Dale, this is Jeff at the County Compass in Eastern North Carolina.
How are you?
Hey, Jeff.
Just sponsored. On the subject of fully funding the pension plan, two quick questions. Number one, I thought it was interesting that Blackstone is the sixth largest external investment manager for the pension plan. Who is number one?
Well, off the top of my head, I think number one is us, because we're managing about 58 billion or 60 billion, about over half of the money now that we manage is managed internally. So we have an internal index fund and we have our internal fixed income fund. But I would say after that it's probably BlackRock. So you got to get your stones and your blacks and your rocks, because
Right.
we some of our real estate managers, we have Rock Point, Rockwood. It's just
Yes.
there's a lot of rock analogies and all this. But I would say it was BlackRock because they manage our international index equity fund, and that's several $1 billion.
And of course, there's some type of review on a regular, periodic basis of how these folks are performing for us. It is possible that we switch or we give more to one entity than another, I assume.
That's correct. Let me kind of unpack that a little bit. When I was sworn in as the state treasurer, I think I inherited $11 billion of what we call unfunded commitments. These are commitments that the previous treasurer had made into some of these alternative investments. And when you make a commitment like this, the term of those commitments is normally 12 to 15 years. And there's no getting out of it. You make the commitment, you make the commitment to fund it. So we inherited about $11 billion of unfunded commitments and at that time the pension plan was valued at $90 billion. So $11 billion over $90 billion. And so that's number one. And number two, so we have whittled those unfunded commitments down over the last 5 years. So we've cut that in about half. And that's important because, Jeff, to your point, this isn't just about what you earn on the money. It's about the value that you bring to this plan to the pensioners, in consideration of the compensation that you get. It's also, and sorry to say this because it seems like it's a little out of context, but it's not. This plan now, given its maturity, is in a situation it's never been in during any of our lifetimes, and that is that I'll say this slowly, there are less people paying into the plan today than are not. You recognize that sentence from the Social Security system, where, when I was a kid, there was 1,000 to 1 paying into the system for everyone taking money out. Now we're down to 2.1 to 1. We're not obviously in that situation with the pension plan, but you have experience with this phenomenon of less people paying into the plan than are not. We have crossed that precipice. And at the end of the day, as dedicated as our public servants are, those that teach, protect, and otherwise serve, they probably don't leave the house in the morning thinking about assumed rates of return, actuarial assumptions, life expectancies. They leave the house thinking about how they're going to best educate our children, how they're going to protect our streets and provide the other public service duties. Why should any of this matter to you? The reason it should matter to you because it is at the end of the day, just like happened last Friday, we sent out $562 million of pension checks for one 30-day period. At the end of the day, we are in the check delivery business. People are tangentially interested in all these other issues, assumed rates of return, life expectancies, bond ratings, interest rates, funding budget. Everybody's tangentially interested in these topics. But at the end of the day, when somebody sends in their retirement papers, they expect to get a check. And that's why, going back to the basis of your original question, that's why all this is mathematically so important. What you earn on this pension plan is obviously extremely important. But if we're going to preserve, strengthen, and sustain this plan for the next generation of public service workers, when I just told you half the people born today are expected to live past 100, we have to think about the funders. And the funders are the counties, the cities, the state itself, and the employers of North Carolina. And we got to think about the funders' ability to, and what percentage of their budget it takes to even fund this plan. So return on investment is critically important. But we also have to focus on risk, and we have to focus on the funders. After 9/11, the plan lost probably $19 billion. And for those of you who haven't thought about this lately, when you lose 25% of your money, you got to make 33% on your money to get back to even. And then the great financial crisis, we lost over $24 billion. And no fault of Richard Morris, Treasurer Moore, Treasurer Cowell. These are acts of terrorism and acts of the great financial crisis. But it's all things that have to be considered, especially when people look at us. They look at us as being in the check delivery business, and especially when you calculate that there are less people paying into the plan than are not. And that has to be kept in mind.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, Jeff, just to back up there a little bit, BlackRock is our largest investment manager.
Yeah.
Internally, we manage about 52% of the pension fund, so BlackRock has the most.
Thank you, sir.
We're managing $60 billion internally.
Great.
And that's why when we just got our study from our peer group, the previous treasurer had engaged CEM benchmarking, and I renewed that engagement. They look at the efficiency. We've talked about funders. The employees put 6% of their salary in it. The money grows, but the efficiency with which you run the plan becomes highly important. And that's why, to kind of close back on Dan's loop, I was in this percentile all the time when I was in school, which I've now learned is not a good percentile to be in, which is the 0 percentile. We are in the 0 percentile in terms of the efficiency, the efficacy of our pension plan compared to other pension plans of our size. We're in the lowest cost percentile of any pension plan in the world.
Great.
And I'm standing on the shoulders of the hardworking folks in the investment management division when I report that to you.
Big job. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, well, is there any other questions? Just remind you that 1:30 today we'll be having our local government commission. Might be of interest to you, we talk a lot about the rural infrastructure, but there are two financing applications, one from Raleigh and one from Charlotte today, that total well over $400 million to do water and sewer infrastructure repairs. So it's not just always a rural issue.
Right. And some of these urban cities, even though we're talking about hundreds of millions and billions of dollars, I mean, some of them only have 20% in reserve. And, some of these smaller communities have 80% in reserve, which is obviously a good thing. But that's why it's going back to, I think, to Dave and AP's question, that's really important to start out like you're going to hold out and understand that, we won the lottery 1, 2, 3 times, and we need to make sure this money lasts.
Hearing no further questions, we'll have some closing remarks from the treasurer.
Thank all y'all for making the choice to join us today. I know we probably should pass out Tylenol before and after one of these meetings, at least to the staff anyway. But it's hopefully my passion it comes through on this call. We've done this every month that I've been the keeper of the public purse, and we're going to do it every month as long as I'm the keeper of the public purse. I think it's just really important to give folks like you who have a job to do the opportunity to ask any question that you like on any subject. And, going back to Jeff for a moment, I mean, I remember the first year I did this, I had a question from the London Times called in, and then I had a question about why the LGC underwrote the dredging of Currituck Bay or Currituck Sound. So the questions can really range, but I appreciate staff putting this together, and we are always striving to be, it may not always be good news, but we're always striving to be the most accessible public office, not just in North Carolina, but in the nation.
Thank you, Treasurer. With that, we will conclude. Thank you all for joining us today.